Hey everyone, thank you very much for joining our webinar today. Today's topic, for those who don't know, is making your listing stand out. Inspiration from unique property management companies. So essentially what we're looking at today is people that have what we refer to as non-traditional inventory at Guesty, and we're joined by distinguished panelists, and we're really excited about today's topic. I think we're all gonna learn quite a lot. All right, a little bit about me. I am Paul Zukowskis. I'm the VP of Global Customer Success at Guesty. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years, have learned a ton about the industry and the vertical, and just really have enjoyed all the various conversations that I've had with the property management companies over the years. A little bit about our panelists, who are joined by Joseph Ayres. He's the owner and president of Treehouse Grove and Ayres Vacation Rentals. We're also joined by Todd King, the VP of Marketing and Communications at Tentrr. I've had the pleasure of meeting both of our panelists. I've been working with their accounts both directly and indirectly through the CSMs for quite some time. I know that each of these panelists have done amazing things with alternative accommodations on short-term rentals. And so they're a perfect representation of kind of the space, and they're going to offer quite a lot in their presentations to all of us today. So a little bit about the format. We'll hear from me on some opening words of what we're seeing, in the market, what we're seeing specifically as in terms of alternative accommodations. And then, you don't want to hear from me too much, so I'll try to keep that to 10 minutes. And then we'll move on to our panelists. They'll each have a little short presentation for you. And then we'll go to like a 30 or so minute kind of discussion between the panelists. This is where we really want you to come forward with any kind of Q&A questions that you may have. And we'll try to interject them kind of naturally into the flow of the conversation that we're having today. So short-term rentals have become mainstream. Basically what we've seen is that a majority now has joined short-term rentals because they were forced into it because of the pandemic. I don't know if there's any kind of tech readers out there, but there's a very well-established book written by Geoffrey Moore called Crossing the Chasm. And within that literature, he talks about how there are early adopters, then there's the early majority, and then there's the late majority. And this follows kind of that natural growth curve that you'll see of adoption. And I think something that we saw throughout the pandemic is that we moved from the early majority to the late majority as people were kind of forced into trying something that they were uncomfortable with before. And a huge kudos to all the property management companies that are on the line today for your ability to kind of capture this market and deliver a higher level of service, something that maybe they weren't accustomed to in their typical STR. If they were staying at hotels. And so short-term rentals, we've seen this spike of occupancy following the pandemic, and we're seeing a consistent kind of occupancy moving forward, even now, potentially into year 2 post-pandemic, where people are here to stay and continue renting on the short-term side. One of the areas in which we did see kind of this spike year over year was in these alternative niche accommodations. Keep in mind that in 2021, we saw a 58% increase in booking volume of these alternative accommodations. This 2020 was a very successful year from the data, what we saw for alternative accommodations. So seeing it explode further into 2021 means that these type of accommodations, that there's a real market for it, that there's a real need for it, and that travelers are actively seeking them out. And so because travelers are actively seeking them out, we're seeing the market kind of fill the need for these type of travelers. And so we've seen a 44% increase in the number of listings from 2020 to 2021. And so, a lot of what we're going to discuss today is, one, getting into the alternative accommodation space, but two, also, once you're in there, how do you create a brand for yourself, and how do you continue to kind of build the number of listings within that accommodation space? So I know that we're in November here, in the United States and throughout, majority of the world, we're looking at kind of the holiday season. Specifically in the United States, we're looking at Thanksgiving booking volume, and it is absolutely booming. We are 302% higher than we were in 2020 and 93% higher than we were in 2019. And so, If people didn't make accommodations for whatever reason in 2020 because of the pandemic, they're certainly feeling much more comfortable given kind of the vaccinations and everything to feel comfortable booking in the future and booking for Thanksgiving. We're seeing a similar trend move into Christmas, both in the United States and in the UK. We're essentially close to 500% higher in the United States for Christmas bookings, and 430% higher in the UK. And so, really, where we're in the UK, we're back to 2019 numbers, and in the United States, we're 150% higher than we were in 2019. And so, there's a lot of promise for this upcoming holiday season. If you're not already booked up, I would strongly suggest to keep your ADRs pretty high, because it is likely that you will be booking up over the holiday season. And so, specifically to talk to the prices or those average daily rates over the holiday season, the United States has captured basically 53% higher rates this holiday season than last. And in the UK, they're 100% higher. And this is obviously, supply and demand economics 101. If we're seeing this huge increase in the booking window for the holiday seasons, why not make sure that you're keeping your pricing fidelity, if not inflating your prices to accommodate kind of that demand? A little bit about Guesty. Guesty is an end-to-end platform which automates complex operational tasks. It allows for flexible inventory management, as we'll hear today. Both Tentrr and Ayres Rentals is using Guesty for their alternative accommodations. So we are able to provide services for a variety of different inventory types. And what we help do is manage your listings across multiple different booking channels. We were founded in 2013. We've raised over $110 million in funding, well over 300 employees worldwide, 80 customers across 80 countries, and 11 office locations. So wherever your inventory may be, chances are we're probably pretty close to it at Guesty. All right, so like I said, try to keep it short on my end because you really don't want to hear from me. You'd much rather hear from Joseph and Todd. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Joseph, to go ahead and start sharing and kind of tell us a little bit about Treehouse Grows.
Thanks for the introduction, Paul. I'm honored to be a part of this presentation, as we here at Ayres Vacation Rentals have recently developed Treehouse Grove. It's a little over, actually almost 2 years ago. We're coming up on that here in about a couple months. So we're very excited. This is my second presentation here with Guesty, and we've really adopted Guesty, utilized it in many ways, and it's just been a game changer for us and kind of has been one of our keys to success. So what is Treehouse Grove? I'll kind of briefly go over. We are a kind of a boutique luxury treehouse resort located just inside Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So for those of you that may not be familiar with the Gatlinburg or Tennessee location, we sit at the foothills, or actually in the Great Smoky Mountains, but right outside the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We're about 10 minutes away. So we have access to all sorts of hiking trails and restaurants. There's lots of other attractions in the area, whether it be Dollywood, which is a big or a kind of a small Six Flags type resort where they have overnight accommodations as well as rides and all that type of stuff. And so we're right there. And then as far as Treehouse Grove, we sit in Norton Creek Resort, which is a 500-acre property. And we take up a very small portion of that. So we're about an acre or two here inside Norton Creek Resort. So as I was kind of working with our team and putting together our presentation, we were talking about, what were our keys to success? I know in the alternative accommodation sector, it can be a little scary kind of starting a new business or maybe adding some inventory that's you don't know if when you open your doors, if you're going to have guests that come or if you're going to be full. And so we kind of developed a plan as we were building these tree houses to kind of have a brand uniformity. We wanted to kind of try to gather the luxury market in Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg has a lot of cabins. There's several thousand cabins, and there's several thousand hotel rooms. And so kind of to differentiate ourselves, we wanted to have a brand that was more on the luxury end. Our marketing strategy turned out to be pretty good. We really sat down and put a good strategy together, and I'll go over some of that here in a little bit. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we boosted our ADR and our occupancy. And then, of course, our number one thing here at Ayres Vacation Rentals is executing on the guest experience. We just want to have something that people are going to share on social media. They're going to brag to their friends that they got to go there and that the experience was just top notch. And there's no place like it. And so that's kind of what we strive for here. So our branding, this is our kind of main logo. What we did is we kind of came up with a style guide as we were building these tree houses to kind of roll out to the public. And so we developed our logo here that you see, and this is just one page out of that style guide. It's about 10 to 12 pages, and we have anything from how we use our logo, how we position it, in emails or in print materials or digital advertising, so that we kind of have a brand consistency. If you're going to be a luxury brand, you kind of need to walk the talk. And so we wanted to kind of lay out how we use that. Other things that we've done is we kind of had a brand theme. Our brand theme here is we're a mountain getaway in the trees. It kind of encompasses the Great Smoky Mountain National Park as well as kind of being in the treehouse. So that was kind of a big thing for us. And then our brand personality, we're exclusive, we're secluded, we're neat. We use words like breathtaking and unusual, family friendly, try to capture those families with kids. And I'll talk a little bit about that in our marketing section here, but kids are a big driver in the actual bookings of our tree houses, which is interesting. And then we kind of get into our brand pillars. We have a couple key phrases that we use all over our website, and I'll read one of them for you here. We've built the stuff of daydreams, a mountain getaway where you can relax, recharge, reconnect with nature, and take in the views more beautiful than you ever thought possible. So kind of using some of these feel-good words, as I'll call them. So when a guest is kind of booking or looking at our website, they get a feeling for what the brand is, what their experience is going to be like before they even get there. Another thing we do, we try to keep that brand consistency. I kind of mentioned that here a little bit ago, and whether it's in an email or on social media or as we're talking to guests, even staff, and we really try to give that guest a really good experience and make sure that their stay is the best that it can be, so that they come back again. Our key is to kind of stay is to have repeat guests. A lot of repeat guests come into the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And then we own our luxury brand. Part of our marketing strategy is we don't offer many discounts. We don't want to discount our product. I was told by a good friend that, the type of guest that you have into your accommodation, think about when they go to sit on the bed at night on your comforter. What type of guest do you want to actually sit on that comforter? And so we own our luxury brand. We don't apologize for it. Our ADRs are high for some, and not everybody can afford us, but that's been kind of one of our keys to success in our branding. So for our marketing strategy, we put together that pre-launch strategy. So as we were building these things, these tree houses, we kind of developed a rollout of social media posts, how often we were posting. We tried to build the anticipation through social media, develop the following, and And so we would post construction photos, we'd post interviews, we did Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And so people kind of got to see the experience of actually developing these, and lots of construction photos, which is always neat because guests get to see the final product, and but they don't know how we got from A to B, and how we opened. And so it was interesting to see the comments and how much people really loved seeing architectural renderings and floor plans. And then we even did some things like we posted, we were considering the names of each treehouse. And so we got a lot of feedback from guests throughout that, and they absolutely loved it. Part of our pre-launch strategy was we wanted to capture emails. We knew kind of coming out of the gate that we didn't necessarily want to have majority of our bookings coming from Airbnb or VRBO, which those are great marketing platforms. Most of our other cabins, most of their bookings come through there. But if we were going to kind of control our branding and control the guest experience the way we wanted to for these tree houses, we knew it had to be direct bookings through us. And that would help propel us kind of to where we needed to be. So we captured everyone's email address as much as possible, whether it was a landing page on our website, whether it was just about every other post on social media. We created kind of a VIP sign up list. If you were one of the first X number of people to book, you did get a discount for kind of being the first in there. And so we were very excited about that. We also had a great social media ads that went out trying to capture those emails, and kind of kept that consistency there. And then kind of what I would say our kryptonite behind our marketing strategy was our PR campaign. So we planned a media day for travel writers, and we planned kind of a rollout of press releases to the media, and what that ended up being, well, one, it got delayed multiple times because of COVID. So we opened up in May 1st, 2020. We opened reservations on March 1st, 2020. And then of course the pandemic hit on March 14th. And so that delayed our media day, but which in turn kicked us into kind of the press releases. But these press releases, what we found is, travel writers and influencers online, travel influencers, they go to a lot of the same accommodations, right? I mean, you got hotels and you have resorts, and but they needed something that's kind of refreshing and fun. And so that's what we found and kind of targeted those people, and the response was incredible. So very quickly after our PR campaign, we were able to capture around 200 something thousand email addresses very, very quickly, just by doing some of that. Oh, and part of our PR campaign, we controlled the narrative with them. So through our press releases, we would take pictures and only release those pictures to the writers through COVID, because they couldn't come down here, if they included certain details about the property, which in turn helped our SEO on Google, and also our website and all that type of stuff. So once we had our email capture list, which it's now grown to a little over 350,000 emails, what we realized is that's kind of created a bunch of urgency here at Treehouse Grove. And with that allows us, when you have a lot of demand and very little supply, it allows us to increase a lot of our pricing. We continued kind of that luxury brand. We kind of created that brand mystique or exclusivity. So, it's hard to get into, and we hear that all the time. It's all over our social media. It's so hard to find a booking. It's so hard to find an availability. And when people call and you say, I'm sorry, we don't have availability, but let me get your email address, and we'll get you on our list so that the first opening that there is. And with that, we do rolling reservation opening. So what I mean by that is come March 1st of this spring, we will open up September 1st through March 1st of 2023. So every 6 months, we'll kind of open up the following 6 months. And what we see is on those days, we get lots of bookings where people want to book out the fall, or they want to book out the spring, or they want to book out the summer. They're planning their vacations a little earlier. In turn, they're paying a little bit of a higher pricing. And like I said, we're owning that luxury brand of, yes, they might be paying $400 or $500 or $600 a night, but they have a lot of expectations when it comes to that. But we at Treehouse Grove and Ayres Vacation Rentals know that we can deliver on the guest experience where they come back and say, I can't wait to book for next year. And that's our whole goal in doing all that. So getting into executing on our guest experience, our direct bookings are the biggest part. Our website, we spend a lot of time making sure it's on brand, it's giving the correct information, the information that we need, because we wanted to drive all our traffic to our website. And then we invested in people. So when we first opened up, there was 2 or 3 of us, and now we have a staff of about 7 or 8 as we kind of have grown, and that allows us to do anything from deliver firewood to these tree houses to we're blowing the decks off, so all the leaves, so everything looks pristine almost every single day. And basically, if a guest needs something, we can be up there during business hours within 10 minutes. And so that guest experience is very high quality. And when we invest in people, it's not only just for the guests, but it's also for us internally. So we really focus on employee growth. We do what's called DISC assessments, which are kind of personality assessments where we figure out our strengths and weaknesses and how we can communicate better with each other. And so that's all part of our investing in our staff and our people and our team here. And the other part is we refine. I mean, our systems and processes, we think they're good, but they can always be better. And so what ways can we refine that process to make it a little bit better? One big thing that we do is we get an initial impression survey from the guest. So as soon as they get there, Guesty's great with their automated texts and emails. And so we're sending something out to the guests as soon as they check in. Hey, how is your experience? Give us a cleaning rating, give us an experience rating, give us a check-in process rating. How can we be better? Or is this just above and beyond what you thought it might be? And so working on Guesty's platform has just been phenomenal. It's allowed us to refine those processes where, instead of me sitting at the computer or on a phone texting a guest and making sure that their stay is great, it really allows us to automate that part. And when it comes to Guesty, I always talk about customization, automation, and integration. And we can customize our emails to say exactly what we need to say, HTML, on brand. We can text the guest, which the guests absolutely love it. Texting is kind of the easiest way to communicate with guests, especially these days. And then our integrations with, because we're very technology focused, whether it be dynamic codes for our locks to our Wi-Fi. I mean, almost everything runs off that Guesty platform, which allows us to give the guest the best experience possible. All right, so our 2021 kind of year-to-date results here at Treehouse Grove, we're 98% direct bookings, which we're extremely proud of. We set a goal to try to be 80%, and being at 98%, we just blew that out of the water. I mean, our staff here is thrilled. They do a phenomenal job at doing that. We've had guests from over 40 different states here in the United States. And so we're very proud of that. We have a very diverse kind of cast. We've cast our net over across the entire country. We've had folks from 6 different countries that have visited. which I found extremely interesting as I was doing this. I met some folks from Australia a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, they were thrilled to be in the United States, and they were thrilled to come. This was kind of on their bucket list. They heard about us through our PR campaigns, which I didn't even know made it outside the United States, but we were pretty proud of that. We've had just over 916 guest check-ins when I made this year to date. And then our year over year ADR increase has been about $105. So we're extremely proud of these numbers. Our staff does a phenomenal job at making sure the quality is there. And that's kind of what we've been doing here at Treehouse Grove. So with that, I want to put up our contact information. If you all have any questions or would like for us to, if you want to reach out to us or ask us any questions, we're happy to do so. And so with that, thank you very much. And I'll turn it back over to Paul.
Thank you very much for that, Joseph. I mean, just looking at those numbers, 6 different countries, 98% direct booking. You cited 350 emails in your email database. It just reinforces what I said at the top of the presentation, which is there's such a demand for this type of alternative accommodations. And I think that, specifically Treehouse Grove has done a tremendous job of kind of marrying this luxury experience with a alternative accommodation. And so you're really maximizing your ADRs and everything because you went this luxury route. All right. Thank you very much for that. And then, we'll hear more from Joseph in just a little bit, but first let's hear from Todd King at Tentrr. Todd, if you don't mind sharing your screen, let's learn a little bit about what you guys have been up to.
Nice to be presenting today to you guys. So I'm the VP of Marketing at Tentrr, and Tentrr is a booking platform that has a network of about over 1,000 sites, public and private, across the United States. Those include state parks. We basically utilize a wall tent, a customized wall tent with a decking platform with Adirondack chairs, picnic table, cooking area, and fire pit. So the idea is a really incredibly comfortable memory foam mattress, a curated experience that's consistent no matter where you are in the country. So you know what to expect. It's easy to book. We have camp keepers, and we call them camp keepers and camp guides that create the experience for you. Basically, they're the hosts, which is a huge part of our success. We rely on that interaction and that kind of concierge experience to make your stay. We range in kind of what I call the Grampo meter, where you have kind of a basic platform and tent to some of our guests, some of our camp keepers have, running water and bathrooms and that type of thing. On the other side of it, you just have a very comfortable mattress and tent and platform with Adirondack chairs that you would bring your own bedding and food. So we offer a spectrum depending on what you're looking for, from kind of curated camping all the way to glamping. And our model really helps hosts make money from their land, new income streams. We've helped land trust, public facilities make income from what would otherwise be, challenging from a tax standpoint or that type of thing. But basically, for every Tentrr site that's put in, it brings about $500 to $1,000 to the local economy a day. So it's a really nice way. We have a very, very sustainable footprint. One thing I know we're going to talk about more. We're boosting tourism in areas, and we're really focused a lot on our purpose, which is to create accessibility for anyone, no matter how mobile you are, no matter whether you've camped before or not, but get people into the great outdoors help them focus on mental health, and, really provide a very, very easy way to get people camping that is enjoyable. So, and then we're also creating opportunities for our camp keepers and public land to make money, and do it in a very sustainable way. So that's kind of our premise. Wanted to talk a little bit about the opportunity that the pandemic presented. At first, it was interesting to hear Joseph speak about when they launched, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. And I'm sure that there was some trepidation, like, oh, what did we do? We just built these tree houses, and are people going to come? And boy, they sure did. I mean, the outdoors was that respite, or was that, a place that everyone could go to get away from the pandemic. And we saw surges in, our bookings. And it's interesting, we saw more weekdays get booked in 2020 than we have in 2021 or 2019, just because people were not working, or they were able to work remotely. And it was, for us, we looked at it as, this is where people need to be. In general, I think I put nature will provide, and that's a very good quote. If you look up, like, John Muir and, any of those leaders in nature and outdoor, they speak to what nature can do to the soul. And, by creating these venues that get people out into nature, whether it's in the treetops or whether it's in, in a tent or camping, you look, and we believe that kind of the tilt of your world changes if you're out in nature. So what we did is, we looked at all different opportunities to get people outside. I mean, we partnered with the New York Canals Corporation. They had these incredible, historically diverse, canalways that were used for commerce, back in the day. And now we've created, opportunities for people to use those to navigate and to actually stay on these canals and learn about and kind of revitalize these areas of the Hudson Valley that are, kind of economically depressed. And it's a way that, without building a large hotel, the proof of concept is, how can we get people here from an economical way that it doesn't, disturb the land, that we can set up these platforms for accommodations. So, and then I'll kind of couple to what Joseph was saying about PR, getting the media out to the sites and having them write about it, talk about it. We launched New York State Parks this year, and we had over 20 million impressions from people that saw the media. We had Governor Hochul, now Governor Hochul. She was the lieutenant governor at the time. She was there at our sites when we had the ribbon cutting, and just really celebrating, getting people out and providing these opportunities for the community to grow. So, investing in the elevated customer experience. I mean, we really focus on this, letting our camp keepers and camp guides really do what they do by offering, this is one of our top performing sites in Maine. And they offer Lobster, they offer boating, it's really about a lot of this experience is we provide an incredibly comfortable, curated experience for you to sleep. But what do you do when you're not sleeping? And the experiences that you have, with your family, the memories that you make, that's what it's about for us. And if we can create a venue for memories to be made, I mean, probably if you think back about in your life, if you've gone camping with your parents or with anyone, you probably have a memory, where you saw your first salamander, or you burnt your eggs, or I mean, whatever it is, like with your father or mother, like it was just probably something that stuck with you for your whole life. And, that's kind of how we look at this and encourage our camp keepers to provide that to their guests. What we do is not only focus on the site experience, the physical site experience, but also our website experience, and making sure that we offer tools. So if you're a camp keeper, we offer a dashboard, similar to what you would see if you hosted, on a Airbnb or that type of thing. But, you can set your price, you can add photos, you can add amenities, you can add maps, you can sell extras, so that it's really about customizing that experience and creating it, and really about making sure that you surprise and delight your customer at every corner. So we provide that venue, but then we have best practices, or we actually have, camp keepers that have been doing this for 5 years, and they'll have a webinar and say, well, here's what I did. And here's, and then what we're seeing is just the return visitors to those sites. And so, from a camp keeper standpoint, we're signing up new camp keepers every day that have land. And we're also signing up new state parks and public land as well that want to offer, this network of tents across the United States. And another thing we did from a marketing standpoint is we invested in our network, and that was, we partnered with Coleman. So Coleman's a leading camping company. They have an incredible network. They have a similar, kind of mission, vision, values. They want to get people into the outdoors to have the best experience they can. We had these venues. Coleman had stoves, they had canopies, they had lights, flashlights, coolers, all their great products that they have. So then we partner with them so that the customer experience is incredibly elevated when you go to a Coleman Tentrr site. We partnered with Michelob. We had 5 sites on the West Coast where Michelob came in and basically curated the experiences and subsidized the experience. So you can go horseback riding when you're at a site, or you can go visit an outlaw hideaway in Arizona, or you can go to the alpaca farm and learn how to care for alpacas. You name it, we offer these experiences. And so again, focusing on what the guest is doing when they're not sleeping in the accommodation. So that's been our kind of movement through this. And then again, just really thinking about how the guest is able to get out and enjoy nature and change the way that they think. And we feel like if you're out in nature, you will think about the world a little bit differently, and integrate those kind of learnings into your everyday life. So with that, you can find us at tentrr.com. We have locations in 44 states. We have 7 state parks. And with that, love to just take some questions.
Thank you very much for that, Todd. That was insanely informative. And I have to ask you, where does Lobster rank on the Grampo meter? The level of
if you ask people in Maine, it's like peanut butter and jelly. So but if you're from a place that doesn't have lobster, then it's probably pretty high. So
I definitely agree that that's probably on the upper end of the Grampo meter for you if you're including free lobster with your stay. Something also that you mentioned, which was the mental health kind of aspects of it. I think that we all can, anybody who's been camping understands that you sit in the car and you drive for however long it is. It's probably over an hour, but anywhere between 2 and 5 hours. And you get out of the car, and the first thing that you do is you take a deep breath in and you get that fresh air. And it's almost as if you're already starting kind of that transformation process of letting the stress kind of go away and, kind of diving into your experience, which I think is something that's very important to consider when we're talking about alternative kind of experiences or alternative accommodations, is that not only is it an accommodation, but it's also kind of this built-in experience. And I think that you talked about that, right? Like you have your specific experiences like the alpaca farming or whatever, but the actual stay itself is an experience for the guest beyond just your traditional accommodation.
Yeah, well, just, making s'mores, sitting around the fire, talking, being social, like some of the things, life got really fast prior to COVID, and most people didn't take the time to slow down, unplug, and just focus on what's important. And I think, at least the way we approach it, that's very important to us.
Yeah.
And even if you think about what camping was, my wife makes fun of me because it would take me 4 days, to roll up the tent, the sleeping bags, everything, pack the car, get everything. Then we go to the site, and then we, set up the tent. And it's a ritual, and then I'd come home, and then the tent would be wet. So I'd set it up in the driveway to dry out. And so it was like this really laborious, but, fun for me. But at the same time, one thing most people don't have in their lives now is time. And so we just make it simple where you're on your app and you just, hey, I want to go camping this weekend, and everything's set up, ready to go. And you can focus on the experiences like we were talking about, rather than the act of setting everything up.
Yep. Perfect. All right. So you guys did a phenomenal job of selling the dream of alternative accommodations. The PMCs on the line know it's not all rosy, right? You deal with bad guests, you deal with damage within your units. So I'll start with you, Joseph. What's the downside of alternative accommodations? What are some of what makes things a little bit more difficult for you operationally because of your unique inventory?
You are correct. Not everything is all rosy, as we may make it seem. Building in a tree has its difficulties. It's just, we can say that. So from an operational standpoint, not only the construction process of tabbing into the trees, and because we actually go into the trees and through the trees in some cases, and have different ways of getting that done. But operationally afterwards, I mean, you're dealing with, we've had bears on the trees and on the tree houses to, you get lots of wildlife that live up in trees typically, whether it's birds, bears, raccoons, ants. I mean, just this whole insect system that we have never really had to deal with in a normal cabin. That's been probably one of our biggest challenges. I mean, it's almost a constant. We're checking not only every single bedroom, but now we're checking for ants in the closets, or there's obviously, when you build up in a tree, there's some sort of hole around the tree. So how do you kind of keep a lot of that from coming in? So that's probably our biggest challenge. And it's just another added step to our checkout cleaning checklist.
How just to go down that route a little bit further, you're offering a luxury experience, but you're also battling kind of the insects and the wildlife kind of coming into that experience. Are you finding that guests are more accommodating to the occasional ant infestation than they would be potentially in some of the other more traditional inventory that you carry?
That's interesting. Oh, we get both sets. We get some say, "Hey, this is a Ritz-Carlton experience. Why is there an ant in my treehouse?" You get others that it might storm, and the trees do move when it storms. Therefore, the treehouse moves a little bit. It almost feels like you're on a ship. And so some people say, "Hey, I heard a lot of banging and knocking last night during the storm." We're like, "Yeah, the trees move." That's kind of part of the experience. Some people love it. They're like, "Oh, this is so cool. We understand we're in a treehouse. Like this is a glamping experience type thing." And they absolutely kind of take it, and they brag about it, or they're taking pictures of bears, that are walking through that might climb on a treehouse or whatever it might be. And it actually ends up exploding on social media from it. So it's kind of a good way to kind of turn it into a positive, and our guests typically are pretty good about that.
Okay. Todd, same question to you. What are some of the downsides of dealing with glamping type of accommodations? Are you finding that guests are less willing, because they're paying for glamping, that they're less willing to stay during inclement weather? Or are there issues where massive storms are taking down your tents or anything like that? What's the downside of glamping?
I think it's expectation to reality. I've found that guests aren't reading as much as they used to, or we just found this, like, we'll say, hey, the site has a hike in of, I don't know, 300 yards. And then they leave a review. Gosh, it was a really hard hike in that I didn't expect, or, just making sure that expectations are set and they understand. Sometimes they critters came up. That's a great one. It's nature. You're out there, snakes, like some people don't like that. Others love that. And I guess it's just a matter of establishing the expectation of, hey, we're going to curate everything with the tent and do the best we can to make sure your stay is enjoyable. But, the factors that we can't control, like weather, like animals, like even people's expectations, that's where, that's when we get a call, hey, this wasn't up to my expectation, or wow, this really exceeded my expectation because we saw a moose walk through our, property. And it can go both ways, right? It can be, wow, we just had this terrible rainstorm that came through, but we were perfectly dry. And then we walked out and the most beautiful rainbow we've ever seen in our life occurred, So I just think it is, it's hard, right? As you're providing accommodations to make everyone happy all the time. We try to do our best, but things happen with weather, with nature, with animals that are, unique. So, yeah.
We had a question from someone come through that I think is very relevant to this, is that when you're dealing with remote locations, Todd, tents that are a 300-yard hike, if not more, from where the cars may be parked, what is it like operationally as far as cleanings or maintenance? Is this something that you do between stays? Like, what are the expectations there?
Yes, so we have a protocol that we ask our camp keepers to follow. Again, they're the hosts, so they represent the local site, and so they are boots on the ground. Obviously, after every stay, there's cleaning protocol that must be followed. There's trash that needs to be taken out and that type of thing. So it's very simple from that standpoint. A lot of the sites are remote and private. Others are not. There's parking right beside. There's handicap accessibility. It's great. We just offer a lot of different options for different people are looking for different things. So from an obligation standpoint, for the camp keeper or the camp guides are basically our camp keepers at state parks. They maintain those sites and keep them top notch during the season.
Great. And you keep referencing the season. So yeah. Is it safe to assume that a lot of your accommodations are only available during the warmer months, and that you guys aren't offering any kind of winter-like tenting accommodations?
We have locations all across the United States, and I saw a question on Canada, and that's an area that we're looking into. But basically, we do offer heaters and stoves for our campsites, and we have some in Michigan and New England that stay open year round, and people actually seek out those. We also have sites, in the South that are open year round. Some camp keepers decide, hey, during the seasonality of winter, I'm going to just winterize these and I'll open back up in the spring. Others say, you know what, I'm going to offer this winterized camping experience. And that is an amazing experience if you've ever done that. I mean, going out and camping in the winter, staying on a nice, comfortable bed in a nice, warm tent, can't beat it. So if that's what you like. So anyway, it's a great experience no matter where you're located. Obviously the southern season is different from the New England season. Southern season actually kind of starts on the shoulders of the New England season. So,
Got it.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. I want to shift gears just a little bit. With the United Nations currently right now in Glasgow in Scotland, climate change is front of mind for a lot of folks. And I know Todd, that you had referenced kind of bringing anywhere between 500 and 1K to the local community per night of stay. Can you speak to, actually, we'll go to Joseph first for this one. Joseph, can you speak to kind of the overall environmental footprint and kind of how you're trying to be as energy efficient or as green as possible with your accommodations? And what if you guys took any additional steps to enable that?
Sure. Yeah, no, we've definitely taken lots of steps. I mean, kind of being in a tree house, you expect us to be as environmentally friendly as possible, and we certainly do everything that we can. From a developer standpoint, as we're constructing these, that's top of mind. So all our light bulbs are LEDs, for instance. We have energy efficient appliances and energy efficient HVAC systems. And not only that, we're looking at, in our future phase, we're currently building another 8 right now. And so when somebody opens a door, leaves a window open for someone an extended amount of time, that HVAC system shuts off. And we've been pleasantly surprised. Our utility bill is a couple $100 a month for all 8 tree houses, which is to be able to operate water, sewer, and heating and cooling. And it blows me away. It's less than my house. So we're pleasantly surprised and kind of doing our part, as well as we do anything from wood chips around the kind of the root systems of these trees. That's extremely important in making sure that the trees stay alive, because that's kind of your foundation.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Todd, same question for you. How is Tentrr being environmentally responsible?
So the way that we set up everything is it's a non-permanent structure. So it's impervious, so water can flow through, and we don't dig out any foundations. So a lot of the sites that were considered for either have like riparian corridors or wildlife corridors or that type of thing that we don't want to disturb. And so what we do with the elevated structure, and an example is you put a Tentrr in, 1 year, you take it away the next year, or you move it within 2 or 3 months, you can't even tell that it was there. I mean, it just grows back naturally. And so, we obviously use sustainable materials. For instance, our loo bags, it's all biodegradable. We spent a lot of time really researching and thinking about this. And for state parks, if you've been to state parks recently, you'll see that camping areas usually have a lot of trash around and they're overrun. So we're working on helping them, create spaces that are underutilized in the state park. Obviously we're not going into endangered species areas or anything like that. We're keeping it in an area that, is accessible, but also doing it in a way, and because it is portable, can be moved and continually to keep that ground in that area around it, in a good state. So it's top of mind to us. And for instance, like we've got a project where we're helping the people of Louisiana that were impacted by Hurricane Ida, which we have a great network of sites giving back not only to the environment but also to the communities there. Working with local artists and really helping support them. So doing more than just providing an accommodation, really being respectful of the environments that we're in and the local areas that we're in.
Yeah, that's so important. specifically, there's this entire movement of renting responsibly. And so really what you see that responsibility being is being one with the community, making sure that basically a rising tide lifts all boats. So as you guys are generating, good revenues and incomes and more attention to the space, that you're throwing some of that back into the community when it's needed, and helping, as you alluded to, some of the communities that you're in are maybe a little bit more destitute than others. And so being able to help bring as much, dollar to that community, I'm sure is very impactful for them.
And reinvest in other areas, helping, you said it right, the rising tide lifts all boats, and also bringing people in that care about that too. And engage, we've had people that have visited our sites and then they've bought homes in that area, or they've done, contributed to, funds there and that type of thing. It's just been, it's about community, really.
Great. All right. So we did get a question from the Q&A section from the audience, Joseph, and I think this one is mostly directed to you, because you specifically raised this in your presentation of, I want to know who's sitting on my comforter, right? And I think that's a very tactile way of approaching guest quality, right? And so what are, beyond just the high ADR, because we know high ADR is definitely a player, but it's not the single player into guest screening. What other best practices would you be willing to share as far as making sure that you are bringing the right type of guest? Because as important as the accommodation is, it's also just as important of who else is staying in the other 7 houses, so that they're not ruining my experience in my luxury house. So have you guys implemented any other best practices there?
Yeah, we certainly have. Part of we learned very quickly that if one rowdy guest in Treehouse Grove can ruin 7 others. And so kind of how we implement anything from quiet hours to which kind of start at 10 p.m. Since we did that, we've had 0 pushback and almost 0 problems. And just kind of reminding people, hey, you're not the only guest here. We're happy to help you in any way possible. Let us know, and we'll try to fix whatever might be your problem. But what we've seen is guests have actually, especially through kind of COVID, is they've loved to meet somebody else from someplace else. And so we have communal fire pits and kind of shared picnic tables in and around the property. And what it's done is it kind of creates this community of, hey, I'm from Alabama, or I'm from New York, and we're down here for the weekend. I kind of heard about this. So you come to Great Smoky Mountain National Park all the time. And people end up being friends. And so that's kind of been a huge aspect of, just people in nature like to be social, and especially through COVID, we haven't been able to. And so we've just kind of seen that as this huge draw to kind of what Treehouse Grove is, and why we kind of clustered them together.
So you guys aren't reliant on any kind of background screening or?
Sure. Yeah, no, we certainly do. Through Guesty's platform, we use Safely, and so we do a lot of those background screenings, as well as we try to almost call every single customer before they get here and set the expectations. Todd talked about reality versus expectations, and kind of say, hey, just wanted to remind you, check-ins at 4, or if you'd like an early check-in, how can we customize this experience for each guest? Would you like a bundle of firewood to kind of be waiting on you? So we try to encompass all that and almost be a concierge for them that kind of elevates their expectations and experience.
Yeah. And I think that adds a lot. Knowing that someone is there and that they're willing to help at a moment's notice, like you said, within a few minutes, 10 minutes, should an issue arise. I think that's in the back of the mind of anybody who's booking, that, hey, if I'm not acting correctly or according to the community here, I'm going to be addressed within 10 minutes type of thing.
Yep.
How about for you, Todd? Same question, right? So we're talking about guest quality. When you're in the great outdoors, you don't really get the benefits of any kind of decibel meters or any specific smoke alarms or anything like that. So is guest quality as important to Tentrr, or is it because it's so remote and because it's a camping type of environment, you're more accepting of a wide range or taking on a little bit more liability there?
Well, one of our goals is to get new people into the outdoors. There's so many barriers, I don't want to sleep on the ground. I don't want to get wet. I mean, we hear them all. I don't like insects. I don't like the cold. I want to sleep at a given temperature. So we try to help, remove those barriers through the experience. So we like to meet everyone where they are and do our best through our camp guides and camp keepers to, if you're new to camping, we talk to you on the phone and give you the tools that you need to be ready and prepared. I think some of the challenges that we probably have together with Josh is that people don't think sometimes, they don't know how to start. They've never started a fire in their life, or they come in shorts and the weather's 30 degrees or flip, it's just like we can't prevent that, but also we're also embarking on a huge education initiative to help people learn more about it. And I think if you inform people and educate them through the experience, then they're going to be happy they took part in that. So
Great.
I guess that's my answer to that.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'll end it here. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you guys very much for taking the time to kind of talk through your alternative accommodations. It's been amazing to see kind of Tentrr's growth as well as Treehouse Grove's. Thank you guys very much for your time today. If anybody wants any additional information from Todd and Joseph, we'll be sharing this recording afterwards. I know that their information is going to be provided as well. And so thank you everyone for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day.